the main view. Good, so let's kick this off. With me on the call today, I have Ray Mehring, the CEO of Qorus, and David Cloutier, Global Pre-Sales Technology Architect with Qorus as well. They'll be spending most of the time talking to you in this call. I just wanted to set this up and talk about the partnership, what it's all about, and why we think it's important. So with that, let's get going. So for those of you not familiar with K2 or Qorus, I'll have Ray talk to Qorus specifically, but on the K2 side, there's about 25% of the audience not familiar with K2. At a very high level, we're about making it easy, providing software that makes it easy to create very comprehensive SharePoint and dynamic CRM-based workflow forms and solutions, and as part of that, to also be able to automate enterprise business processes that may or may not interact with those top two applications that we talked about. We have a large customer base, and I'm not going to spend too much time on that here. Our customers sort of generally tend to be about 50% larger enterprise and 50% medium-sized organizations, a significant partner solution delivery organization globally to help us to scale across all of those 80 countries that I talked about, a significant and very deep relationship with Microsoft, Tier 1 managed at a global level, and we also have a strong partnership with SAP for a number of environments where customers want to be able to integrate K2 and SAP together to extend their investments in SAP. And you can see some commentary from both Gartner and IDC from mid to late last year that cover some of the growth aspects that they see from us compared to some of the other vendors in the market, and we're pretty proud of that, that statistic. I wanted just to set this up just for a second by talking about a couple of things. Ultimately, at the end of the day, all of our customers are trying to deliver solutions within their organization. And we all know that there's a significant challenge today in being able to have IT meet the demands of the business from a number of perspectives. The first one is finding really solid skilled developers is tough. The second one is that it's hard to manage and deal with complex IT projects and get them deployed in a meaningful way. One of the things that a lot of our customers told us is that the amount of time it actually takes to create a rich user interface for the applications that they are creating is a significant part of the overall amount of time, and they want to be able to reduce this significantly. And you can see there just the average overall lifecycle cost for a company just managing forms alone within their organization, and that excludes any other part of the application. And then when it comes to things like SharePoint itself, and we'll talk a little bit more about that today because a big part of what we and Qorus do together is centered around the world of opening up SharePoint to a broader range of business applications, is really all about making sure that customers can use this technology to drive further adoption within the user base and move it beyond the realm of just a simple portal or a simple document collaboration tool, and then extending SharePoint to use and interact more with traditional business processes within an organization. And those are significant areas for us as a company, along with our partnerships with companies like Qorus to focus on. At the end of the day, from a K2 perspective, it's a piece of software, and what it basically allows you to do is to create and manage the life cycle of business applications, both horizontal and vertical, across a broad range of business needs by being able to use declarative visual tools without having to go and write custom code, or significantly eliminating or minimizing the need for code. And obviously there's a significant result in being able to use budget dollars in a more effective way. One of the things we find when we talk to a lot of customers today is that they spend a lot of their time spending their budget on keeping the lights on rather than on innovation, and we want to be able to be a catalyst for being able to change that as far as possible. A significant amount of productivity improvement as well, and everyone has limited expensive resources today, and so if we can make people more effective in the work that they do in bringing these business applications to market, not just running the business applications, then we're likely to be significantly more successful. And then at the end of the day, there's also a significant focus around maintenance burden. When you talk to IT organizations today, most CIOs have at the top of their priorities the need to be able to reduce and manage application lifecycle costs within their organization. And again, we're a significant catalyst to do that as well, along with decreased time to value, total cost of ownership and increased ROI. And the time to value, again, is really all about moving from this world of traditional code-based applications to declarative visual designed applications. And we think that is where a lot of applications are going to today. So with that in mind, let me lead into what this partnership is really all about. Many of our customers today have a need of being able to create business applications that are not just about transactional data. They're about the ability to effectively work with document content. And very often there's the need to be able to bring transactional data and this document content together. And there are a range of examples, and you're going to hear Ray talk about more of these. What we found in the past is that these types of offerings were available in the past, but they were either incredibly complex, very expensive, or hardwired into siloed solutions. And what I mean by that is that you bought a contract management solution, and as part of that, you got an assembly solution, but you didn't have a way of being able to effectively use that assembly solution for other things that you may need it for in the organization. And we believe that this partnership between K2 and Qorus really opens up a significant opportunity for us to change that and provide customers with a much richer way of being able to work. Again, as I mentioned, here are a few examples of applications, and we'll talk about many more of these. And so what we've done with Qorus is basically sat down and said, what happens if we bring together the best of process and application composition with the best of document assembly capabilities offered by Qorus to be able to allow you to more easily create a broad range of business solutions. And so with that in mind, what I'm going to do is hand over to Ray, who's going to talk to you more about Qorus, what it is they do.
Hopefully everyone can see my screen there. My name is Ray Mayring. I'm the CEO of Qorus Software and one of the co-founders of the business. And what Qorus Software does is we enable organizations to generate better documents faster. And we do this through applying document automation capabilities to your SharePoint platform. Qorus Software is a global organization. We have offices in the US, the UK, and our development takes place in South Africa. And we have a number of customers across the world, and all of those customers seem to be in a broad range of different industries. In addition to that, we're Microsoft Gold application development partners. So we have been able to follow closely Microsoft's development on the SharePoint platform and take advantage of many of those new innovations there. As a trend in the market today, the number of documents that organizations are required to generate has definitely increased. If we think about some of the regulation that's been passed around the world over the last few years, it's meant that companies have needed to spend more time creating more documents. And in many ways, the complexity of those documents have increased as well. The documents are no longer just static pieces of information, but they actually live and form part of core business processes and often require decisions to be made about what content is included in those documents, what data gets included into the documents, and how ultimately those documents are presented. Of course, we all know that SharePoint is a critical component of the Microsoft application stack, and it's also the home of most documents in organizations today. People are storing their documents in SharePoint and managing their documents in SharePoint. And that's why by combining the power of being able to generate documents with SharePoint and its document management capabilities, we're able to enable organizations to be more effective and efficient with their document creation requirements. And ultimately what this means is that the time and the effort that goes into generating documents, but not just generating those documents, personalizing them and making them relevant to clients or employees or to regulators, is also reduced. So we remove the manual document creation overhead that comes with this increasing need for more documents and more document complexity. By automating the process, we allow companies to be more compliant and more accurate with their documents, so less errors creeping into the documents that are produced. Also to personalize those documents and to ensure that there's governance around the documents that are going out to your key stakeholders through approval processes and by tying in to workflows there. Dave mentioned a few of the examples of the types of documents that people are looking to automate today. But when it comes to HR onboarding, we often have complex processes running in our organizations. Hopefully K2's managing those processes for you. But there typically is some kind of employee contract or welcome letter that's generated as part of that type of process. Or if you're in the financial services industry, things like financial pitch books, customer reports are typical use cases of documents that are complex to generate, prone to error, but also form part of greater processes as well. Dave touched on things like contract life cycles, the ability to generate contracts, to do so in, across multiple geographies, to make sure that those contracts are accurate and that the correct clauses are reflected in the contracts. And also things like case management in the legal space, and being able to rapidly produce legal documents, again, that are accurate and that can be rapidly reproduced as that case moves along there. So those are just a few use cases or examples of processes and documents being generated out of the processes today. Now, the benefits of generating documents are fairly self-apparent. But if you think about the time savings around that, and we had one particular case with a large insurance company in South Africa, they were able to reduce the time generating contracts down to 5 minutes from about 2 hours. So that's a significant saving in time. And of course, if you multiply that by the volume of contracts there, you can see that the people producing those contracts are now able to spend more time doing other business critical activities and less time doing administrative or more mundane type activities such as producing, formatting, and reviewing these fund policy contracts. Now, how do Qorus DocGeneration and K2 work well together? Well, in our experience, many workflows today, at some point during the workflow, require a document to be created. And in a similar way, documents, once they are created, typically have some kind of workflow associated with those documents. So they need to go through an approval process or a review process of some sort. Our K2 has an outstanding workflow engine that's available to its users. But besides just the workflows in there, there are obviously the smart forms that let you design forms really rapidly and connect those forms to back-end data sources as well, and do the same thing with reports. Those back-end data sources, maybe it's your HR system, your CRM system, your financial system, could be proprietary, they could be one of the other systems in the Microsoft stack. But by using the K2 smart objects that ship with K2, you're able to quite easily set up your connections into those environments, pull the data through, and have that data then used either in your forms or in your workflows or in your reports. Now, what Qorus has done is we've taken those elements inside of K2 and we've added the document automation capability into that. And as David will show you in a short while, what we've done is we've connected our Qorus document generation product into the smart objects that are available in K2 and into the workflows that are available in K2, so that what you're able to do is initiate a process using a K2 smart form, progress through a workflow, at some point in that workflow, generate a document that incorporates in that document data from any one of those K2 smart objects, and also makes decisions in those documents about what content is displayed or not displayed based on that data, and then returns those documents back to SharePoint for K2 to continue through that particular process. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Dave Clothier, who's our pre-sales engineer, and Dave is going to take you through just 3 more slides explaining the business process, and then he'll talk you through in some detail an actual demonstration in the financial services industry of K2 and Qorus DocGen together. So let me hand over to Dave at this stage.
Thank you very much, Ray. As Ray mentioned, I'm going to carry on with the conversation throughout this PowerPoint template, PowerPoint presentation. There's only 3 slides left from me, and then I'll jump into a demo itself. So I wanted to talk a little around how we get this done. So how do we do the template integration, and how do we do that really, really tight, robust integration throughout that workflow? So as Ray mentioned, we've got a smart object or a couple of smart objects running throughout this demo, and we're able to connect into various data sources. So at a very, very base level, we're obviously connecting into SharePoint itself, because K2 and both K2 and Qorus have a very, very strong SharePoint integration. I'm also going to be connecting into a CRM system to pull back some client information, such as client name, email address, etc., as well as a list of portfolio funds that this client has subscribed to. And then I'm going to be pulling back some fund information from a SQL database that pertain to those particular funds as well. From all of this information, we're able to then very, very easily create some fund fact sheets, one per fund. And then moving on from there, we'll actually create a portfolio document which is specific to that particular client in terms of the funds that they have subscribed to. So on the other side of this, we obviously have the template itself. Now in the template itself, it's a Word document that has Qorus basically enabled on it, and from there, and I'll take you through this within the demo itself, we're able to actually list through our data sources, actually connect back into these smart objects that we've been setting up. And for each one of those parameters that we're pulling in, each bit of that dynamic data we're pulling in through that smart object, create some data tags that we're able to use through our document, essentially to mark up our document with data tags. Each time a merge happens, that data tag obviously goes back to that smart object and actually pulls in the correct data at that particular point in there as well. So if I have a look at this behind the scenes, very, very simply, within K2, obviously we need to set this up via a workflow process. Now the way we've done this is by using a Qorus custom wizard, which is available to you in K2, and just by dragging that into your workflow, it's enabled. Now there's a little bit of configuration that needs to be done, and it's not a lot at all, and I'll show you 2 quick screens from this. Obviously there's a welcome screen that shows you that you're using a Qorus custom wizard. And essentially, this custom wizard, all it's going to do is connect to a template that you have running within your SharePoint environment. And this template is a Qorus template, and essentially the smart object itself is going to fire off via our API a request into that template for a merge to happen. The user experience, which is quite important, obviously we have a request originator. Now the demo I'm going to be showing you is a financial reporting demo, and typically this would probably happen on a timer job, on a batch process that would either happen once a month or maybe once a quarter, for instance. For the purposes of this demo, we're going to be using a request originator. And essentially, this user is going to be presented with a K2 smart form. And this K2 smart form allows us to present to that user the data that we're picking up via that K2 smart object, or via those K2 smart objects. So we'll be able to see some information coming out of CRM. We'll be able to see some detailed information based on the user or the client that we want to select. And then we'll also be able to see some of the fund information that user is subscribed to. By clicking Generate, at the bottom, what we're able to then do is create some fund fact sheets. So if that user or that client has subscribed to, in this case, three different funds, we'll be creating a fund fact sheet for each one. Moving on from there, typically what you would have in a workflow then is probably an approval step. And this could be a 2-step or an n-step approval, whereby those fund fact sheets go through the approval, probably eventually get signed off by a portfolio manager, and once that occurs, the rest of the workflow will happen. We're going to skip the approval step for the purpose of this demo in the interest of time. But the next step from that is obviously creating the client portfolios. So by using the information that we've used to create these fund fact sheets, we're now able to actually tailor a further document, so a brand new document that is specific to each one of these clients. And again, ending off that process, you might have a further approval process, and then after that, that document will be finalized and ready for client consumption. Again, but we are going to skip out the approval steps in the interest of time. So without further ado, I'm going to move over into my demo environment. And I'll just quickly run through some of the data sources we have here. So very, very quickly, we've got a sort of a SQL database here with a couple of tables running in it, and you can see that I've got some client portfolio information, some client reference numbers, some fund information. I've also got a store procedure running in here that ties that all together and brings me back the information that I want. And it's this information, or the store procedure, as well as some of these tables that we have some smart objects set up to connect into and gather data for us. We also have some CRM information as well. So I've got 3 clients running in this CRM, or this demo, running in CRM, and each one of these clients obviously have differing information pertaining to each one of those. I've also got if I just move over to my SharePoint environment and move down to my Fund Performance library, within this library I've actually got an Excel spreadsheet over here. And if I show you this Excel spreadsheet, it's got some dummy data in, but this pertains to fund performance. I've also got some other worksheets that also pertain to my fund information as well. And you can see that I've got asset allocation information, sector allocation, holdings, etc. I'm also going to show you that we can actually use an Excel spreadsheet sitting in SharePoint, in a SharePoint library, as a data source as well. And that will allow us to effectively set up tables and pull those tables into our Word documents and be able to use that at runtime to populate those tables too. Some other elements I have within this SharePoint environment is obviously I've got some output documents, some fun fact sheets, and you can see this is empty for now. Purposely it's empty, and we'll fill that up in a second, as well as some client portfolios, which is empty as well, again purposefully, and we'll fill it up in a second too. I've also got, as well as my fund performance spreadsheet that I showed you a moment ago, I've also got some legal documents in here as well. Now these are standard Word documents. There's nothing special about them. They just hold plain text for me. Again, in this case, it's got contact information, disclaimers, disclosures, footnotes, etc. Now Qorus has the ability to use these documents at runtime and pull the information contained therein into the document you're trying to generate. Now if you think about a great example is a set of terms and conditions. If you've got a large enterprise environment where you might have 10 or 15 templates running around within your environments, each one of them needing to have a set of T's and C's against them. If you have to review your T's and C's every 6 months to a year, and if they get changed, it's kind of the old way of doing it means that you would have to then update every single one of your templates. But instead, by being able to draw in documents such as this, just plain standard documents, what we're able to do is effectively have a master copy of your T's and C's. Every time we do a merge, no matter which template you want to use, it'll pull in the latest version of that copy. This obviously means you only need to keep one of those copies up to date. I've also got some Qorus templates sitting in this environment, just 2 for now, and you can see that I've got a fund fact sheet template and a client portfolio template. I think perhaps if I show you the client portfolio template, which I have open already, you can see that it's what it looks like a standard Word document, but we've marked this document up with what looks like content controls, but effectively these are Qorus data tags. And if I show you my data tag ribbon over here, if I move over into data tags, you can see on the right-hand side here, I've got 3 data sources set up. I've got a CRM data source, a client fund portfolio data source, and a fund performance data source. If I have a look at this, if I have a look at client fund portfolios first and edit that data source, just give that a second to start up. You can see very, very clearly that natively within Qorus itself, we're now able to connect into K2. And by connecting into K2, we actually connect into smart objects. So what we're able to do is actually browse K2. You would authenticate against your K2 environment and actually browse your smart objects, being able to select the one that you want and then being able to pick a method. And by doing so, this returns all the information that that smart object is able to hold, and effectively creates, in this case, it creates a table with a whole list of data tags sitting therein as well. We've also got the ability to obviously connect straight into SharePoint. So you would browse to a SharePoint list, for instance. Within that list, you'd be able to pick the columns that you want to use. And again, it would generate a similar set of tags for you. We can also connect into a particular web service, for instance. So if it's a non-Microsoft system, perhaps a Siebel backend, we can very, very rapidly write up type of a web service. And as long as that data is exposed in that sort of Siebel backend, we're able to connect into that and generate data tags too. We connect natively into SQL Server, so we can connect straight to a store proc as well as Excel too. If I have a look at this one, we've obviously got a CRM data source. Again, this is a K2, a native K2 data source that is connecting into my CRM smart object as well. Some other things I can show you in this document. If I have a look at some content sections over here, we've got some content sections. Now these are these standard Word documents that I was showing you a moment ago in our SharePoint library. Within this template, it looks like a standard URL, but in effect, once we merge this document, or use it in a merge process rather, it's going to go away to that URL, find this disclosures doc that's referenced here, open it up and pull the information and put it into this document for me. I've got a similar thing running here with my glossary and similar with my footnotes too as well. In terms of the other things we have in here, Ray mentioned a set of business rules that we have in here. If I set up in this little section that we have, we've got a risk profile. Now, for each one of my funds, each fund's going to have a different risk profile. We obviously need to basically articulate back to the user, back to the client, visually what that risk profile is like. And you can see there we've got low, moderate, high, and high. Now, by using a set of business rules, we're able to, if I have a look at that, edit that one quickly, we're able to set up a very quick business rule over here that looks at one of my tags, in this case my risk profile, and I'm saying that when it equals to high, show that item. And there's one setup for each one of these dots. So essentially, coming out of my database is going to be a set of funds and information thereon. It's going to look at the risk profile for each one and only show the appropriate risk profile for each one of those funds. I've also got some other data tags running in here. And literally, my data tags are literally drag and drop. I mean, if I go back to my data tags, if I pick out one of my CRM ones, let's say I wanted to use the client's first name there, I would literally just drag it into my document over here. And you can see it inserted into my document for me over there. Some other things we have running in here are some repeating sections. So this section over here, you can see is just one section. It's a repeating section, and it looks like it will contain or can contain information for just one fund, but it's actually a repeating section. So it's actually going to grab my table of fund information that we pull via my smart object, and for each one of my funds, it's actually going to replicate this and basically iterate it down the page for me. And that's kind of how we set up our templates. They're very, very quick to set up, very, very easy to manage thereon. We've also got some graphs in here that we've populated using our data tags. So if I format this over here, you can see that I'm using my performance table, and from within there, I've picked the columns that I want to use to populate my graph with. We've done the same with our tables over here, and the same with our pie charts up here too. So without further ado, I think I'll step into the actual demo itself. So if I just minimize that for a second and go to home. So the user itself, as we mentioned earlier, is going to be effectively navigating his way through here using a smart form. Let me just wait for that to load up in a second. And I've got a smart form loaded up on my portal homepage here for this particular user. And you can see that what it's done is it's pulled back the information from CRM for me. I'm able to select each one of my clients, and it'll update the information about each one. And more in particular, you can see that what it's done over there is actually updated the funds that client or that particular client is subscribed to. If I select another client, for instance, you can see that all that information changes. So maybe if I select Debbie over there, actually maybe if I select John, because he's actually got he's got three funds down there. And if I hit generate portfolio over here, the first step is going to be creating those fund fact sheets. The second step is going to be creating that client portfolio. So if I hit generate portfolio, I get a notification saying that the workflow has started. Now that workflow has, via the API, passed that information from the smart object back into that template. That template's effectively run that merge process using that information to personalize that document for me. So if I go into fund fact sheets now, you can see that those documents have been created super fast. And if I open up one of those, we can see that it's personalized this particular document for me. It's added in some investment objectives, investment style, coming out of my database of funds. It's also updated my risk profile here, as well as my profile manager, the size of the fund, for instance, the fees associated with it. It's updated my graph over here for me, as well as some other table information that I've asked to produce as well, and again my pie charts. Now what it's done as well is also pulled in my disclaimer, which was effectively a piece of information sitting in a Word document outside of this template, but within my SharePoint library environment, and that's produced that document. And it's done that for each one of my funds. As you can see, it's produced a document for each one of my funds. Now if I go into client portfolios, you can see that it's actually created a client portfolio document for me as well. Now this is based on that template we ran through a moment ago. And if I open up that for you, just maybe make this a little bit bigger. You can see that it's now started to personalize my document for me. It's pulled in my client name, my client reference, for instance, the correct date. If I move further down here, that disclosure that was a URL in that template you saw earlier, it's actually pulled in all the information out of that Word document, so out of that reference document. It's also taken my repeating sections, that one section that I had, but this client has 3 funds that he has subscribed to. So it's created for each one of those sections. It's created some portfolio information for me, some asset allocation information for me, as well as updates in my graphs, my tables. And then for each one of my funds created a section for me, allowing me to display the risk profile, things such as the launch date, the fund size, the information that pertains to that fund, your investment objective and the investment style. And it's done this for each one of the funds that client has subscribed to. And then lastly, it's pulled in some other information based on content sections for me as well. And that's how easy it is. So, again, just to recap, using a workflow, kicking this off using a smart form that connects into a smart object to pull that information from my various data sources and passing that off to one of our Qorus templates shows you how very, very quickly we can create documents that otherwise would have been a manual process throughout that workflow as well. And again, by adding in approval steps along the way, you start to get a feel for how solid a process that we can actually start creating by using K2 and Qorus together. And that's kind of what I wanted to show you today.
Okay, so what I wanted to do is just summarize here. I think that you saw a couple of things that we think are really important. There are many, many business scenarios in which people want to be able to perform this type of assembly. You saw the ability to be able to take the Qorus capability, which is very rich in its own right, extend that with the power of the K2 Smart Object Data Integration layer, so that in addition to some of the data sources that they have out of the box, you have a way of being able to very easily plug them into anything that K2 can consume, and that would include SAP, Salesforce, multiple line of business backends in a number of very, very rich ways. So that's the first thing. The K2 Smart Forms technology clearly plays a role either as part of the initiation of the process or at the configuration of the parameters that define what Qorus is going to be doing, or alternatively as part of an approval routing effort, which we didn't show you today, but you should assume it just comes as part of the workflow. So today's workflow was very much a system-oriented workflow. We told it to go ahead. It told Qorus to go and do all the right things based upon the parameters that it was passed. But as part of that, as David mentioned, adding in multiple steps for approval and all of the things that you would expect to be able to do as part of an enterprise workflow capability with rich rules, rich routing, rich process management is all part of K2. And then behind the scenes as well, all of this is completely auditable and reportable. And so that also adds a bunch of extra capability that we think people want. And when it comes to building these types of applications, whether it's a solution for contract lifecycle management, a solution for pitch book management, such as what you kind of saw here, or any other type of process-driven document assembly type requirement, you can see the power of what we do when we pull these two technologies together.